If you follow Dave Ramsey's advice, you will most likely end up broke and bankrupt in retirement. And I'm going to prove it to you in this video using super simple math and proven research. But I'm not making this video to be controversial or to hate on Dave Ramsey or anything like that. Dave Ramsey has helped a lot of people turn their lives around, which is awesome. But there's one very common piece of advice that Dave Ramsey continues to repeat, even though if you follow it yourself, you will most likely end up broke. So in this video, I'm going to explain Dave Ramsey's worst financial advice, why following this advice is so dangerous and will leave you bankrupt in retirement, and my own approach to reaching financial freedom before I turn 30 years old, which you can just copy, which doesn't have any risk of bankruptcy. Now, Dave Ramsey has given a lot of financial advice, and not all of it is bad. So let me explain the specific advice that I'm talking about. Take a look at this video, where he explains how much money is safe to withdraw in retirement.
All right, so if you got $1 million and you pull off 8, that's 80,000. That means you made 120, so your million grew by 40,000, and you lived on the 80. Then, so if you can live off of 8% and you're invested in good mutual funds, you probably pretty much do it in perpetuation.
And in another video, Dave Ramsey suggests that an elderly couple could withdraw up to 10% of their nest egg every year.
If you want to pull out 10%, you're not going to destroy the portfolio because, dude, I mean, you're 70. What are you going to live to, 170?
So Dave Ramsey is basically saying that if you have $1 million in retirement savings, you are safe to spend $80,000 per year. And for a couple in their 70s, you could even spend $100,000 without risking running out of money. Dave Ramsey justifies this because the stock market has returned more than 10% per year, which is true. And in another video, Dave Ramsey even boasted that he could beat the stock market. He said that investing in large index funds like the S&P 500 wasn't a wise choice because you could do even better.
And over the last 30 years, my little portfolio of that has averaged over 12, most years over 13%.
Wow, Dave, that's great.
But I mean, it's not really hard to beat the S&P. The S&P is the average of the market. So what do you want to be? I always kind of want to be above average. Hello. You know, I mean, that's, you know, try to beat it a little bit.
So not only does the stock market return more than 10% per year, but Dave Ramsey thinks that he can do even better than that. And that's why he tells people that they can safely withdraw 8% and sometimes even 10% of their retirement nest egg every year without running out of money. So that all sounds pretty legitimate, but there's just one problem. If you followed Dave Ramsey's advice yourself, you would almost certainly go bankrupt. And there are actually 3 different reasons for this. So let me explain them from least to most important. The first reason is that if you're planning on a long retirement, you cannot afford to withdraw all of your investment returns. And the reason this is so dangerous is because things get even more expensive every year. That's because of inflation, which has averaged about 3% per year. So you might be buying the exact same things in retirement, but they're going to cost a little bit more. If you spent $40,000 20 years ago, then you would be spending $67,500 today. That's why you need your investments to continue growing even after you retire. If you withdraw all of your investment returns, then you would have the same amount of money in savings, but that money would be worth less. So to actually figure out how much money you need to have saved before you can retire, you have to adjust your expected investment returns for inflation. And Dave Ramsey knows this too, it's just that his math is off. If you look at the historical returns of the market, you'll see that the average return after being adjusted for inflation is around 6 to 7%. So 7% is probably the maximum that you would want to withdraw. So if you had $1 million in retirement savings, you wouldn't want to withdraw more than $70,000 per year. Your wealth just wouldn't keep up with inflation if you withdraw more than that. And as I'll explain later, you actually want to withdraw way less than that. But even this is already less than what Dave Ramsey recommends. Dave Ramsey recommended 8 to 10%, which at least historically has not been sustainable. And 7% versus 8% might not sound like a huge deal, but it is. You would run out of money after just 25 years, which is not a super long retirement. And as I'll show later, it's actually way worse than that. But of course, Dave Ramsey says that he can beat the stock market. And if you can beat the stock market, then maybe withdrawing more than 7% really is safe. But this leads us to the second reason that Dave Ramsey's advice is so dangerous. Because as easy as Dave Ramsey makes it sound, you almost certainly will not beat the market yourself. In fact, if you've been following Dave Ramsey's advice yourself, you've almost certainly lost thousands of dollars already. That's because the research is extremely clear. The vast majority of investors do not beat the stock market. And I'm not talking about random guys investing on the weekends. 92% of professional money managers have failed to beat the S&P 500 over the last 15 years. So what are the chances that you're going to beat the market? It's extremely unlikely, but most people will lose money trying. And I'm certain that Dave Ramsey knows this himself, which is why it's so frustrating when he says things like this.
And so had you done, I'm just going to invest in S&P because I read an article, I would have made $500,000 more for every $10,000 that I had invested 40 years ago.
This is dangerous and misleading advice. The vast majority of investors would be way better off just investing in the S&P 500 and earning that 7% per year. But even if you did pick a fund that outperformed the S&P 500, you still might not get any wealthier for it, because Dave Ramsey consistently fails to talk about the impact of fees. One of the funds that Dave Ramsey says he invests in is the Investment Companies of America fund, and that fund has performed well, but it also has an expense fee of 0.58%. That might not sound like a lot, but you can invest in the S&P 500 for just 0.015%. Invest $1 million, and that's $5,800 per year using Dave Ramsey's portfolio, as opposed to just $150 per year by investing in the S&P 500. And that is a lot of money. So not only would you have to beat the market, which again, very few people do, you would also have to beat the market by a lot to make up for your higher expenses. And what makes all of this even crazier is that even Dave Ramsey's recommended portfolio has actually done worse than the stock market. Huge shout out to the Money Guy show, who actually ran the numbers on this. And here's what they found.
Well, you can see over the last 10 years, from 2013 to 2023, the S&P 500 over that time has annualized over 14% per year. This Ramsey portfolio of 25% growth in income, 25% growth, 25% aggressive growth, and 25% international only annualized 10.8%. Again, don't mishear us. We're not saying those are bad rates of returns. What we are saying is they weren't better than the S&P 500.
So if you put $10,000 into the S&P 500 10 years ago and another $10,000 into Dave Ramsey's suggested portfolio, you would have over $37,000 in your S&P 500 account, but less than $28,000 in Dave Ramsey's portfolio. So what we've learned is that very few people earn better investment returns than the market, even the professionals. You'll have to pay even higher fees just for trying, and even Dave Ramsey's suggested portfolio hasn't beat the market over the last few decades. And that's why it's extremely dangerous to withdraw more than the stock market returns, which again, historically has been about 7% per year. That's already less than Dave Ramsey's recommendation, but even withdrawing 7% is actually extremely risky. This is the third reason that Dave Ramsey's advice is so dangerous. If you withdraw 8% like he recommends, or even just 7%, you will almost certainly go bankrupt, and I can prove it to you. This is the most important concept I wanted to explain, and it will show you why Dave Ramsey's advice is so terrible. Because even though the stock market has averaged a return of about 7% per year, it's rare that the stock market returns exactly 7%. One year it might go up by 25%, another year it might lose 10%. So the market has returned 7% per year on average, but it's highly unpredictable, and that is super important. Because if you're counting on your investment portfolio to retire, you need to withdraw the money you need to live on, whether the stock market goes up or down in a year. Let's say you have $1 million in savings, and we're planning to withdraw 8% of your portfolio, or $80,000 per year, as Dave Ramsey suggests. But then you get unlucky, and the stock market drops 10% in your first year of retirement. That's relatively unlikely, but it's definitely possible. That means you'll only have $900,000 in savings, but you still need to withdraw $80,000 to live off of. Now you have just $820,000 in retirement savings. You'll need your portfolio to return almost 10% per year just to cover your expenses. And we haven't even talked about inflation. And you need to keep withdrawing that $80,000 every year because that's the money you're living off of. So there's a very good chance that next year, your portfolio value will decrease again. All of this causes a downward spiral until you run out of money and go bankrupt in retirement, which would really suck. So since the stock market is so unpredictable, even withdrawing that average of 7% per year is extremely risky. If the stock market dips early in your retirement, your portfolio might never recover. And there's actually a lot of research that backs this up. If you look at the historical data, you'll see just how terrible Dave Ramsey's advice is. For a 40-year retirement, even a 6% withdrawal rate would have resulted in bankruptcy more than 50% of the time, assuming a 75% stock and 25% bond portfolio. An 8% withdrawal rate like Dave Ramsey recommends isn't even charted on this graph, because that would be such a stupid thing to do. So with $1 million invested, Dave Ramsey would recommend withdrawing $80,000 per year. But even if you only withdrew $60,000 per year, you would still probably go bankrupt. The research clearly shows that a 4% withdrawal rate, not 8%, is what's actually safe. But for some reason, Dave Ramsey continues to repeat this extremely irresponsible advice. He's even implied that a 4% withdrawal rate is just a hoax that financial advisors tell their clients just so they can make more money.
Why can you only take out 4%?
Just fear, I think, is the main reason people do
No,
it.
why would the
Inflation.
financial advisor say that?
He gets more money? Is that how that works?
Possibly.
That's absolutely ridiculous. The data clearly shows that Dave Ramsey's advice is irresponsible and dangerous. And again, I don't want this video to be a Dave Ramsey hate video. Not all of his advice is so terrible. But so many people listen to Dave Ramsey that I think it's super important to warn people about this advice. I don't want even more people to end up broke in retirement. So I hope you'll help me in getting the word out. If you know anyone that you don't want to end up bankrupt, please share this video with them. Do not let people you love follow bad financial advice. And before I let you go, I did want to share my own approach for reaching financial freedom without risking bankruptcy. According to the data, a 4% withdrawal rate is much safer, with a success rate above 90% for high stock portfolios. A 4% withdrawal rate means you need to save 25 times your annual expenses before retiring. So if you want to spend $60,000 per year in retirement, you should save up $1.5 million before you quit. And for a lot of my coaching clients, I actually recommend saving even more than that, unless they expect to have some extra income coming in during retirement. And by the way, I put a list of resources that explain these safe withdrawal rates in a little more detail in the video description, so make sure to grab that. If you just copy my approach, your retirement will be much safer with almost no risk of bankruptcy. So here's your homework. Figure out how much money you want to spend every year in retirement, and then multiply that by 25 to 30. This is how much money you should save before retiring. But look, so far I've almost only talked about running out of money in retirement. But the truth is, a lot of people feel like they can never reach retirement at all. So that's why I made a video about how even average people can realistically retire early. No crazy high incomes, extreme frugality, or risky investments required. If you are struggling to reach financial freedom, or you just want proof that it's possible, I'll show you exactly how you can do it in this video right here.